Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Sure. My name is Robin Leah O'Shell. I go by Leah, and in some circles, I go by Alex.
Okay. And which would you like me to refer you for this interview?
Alex.
Okay, Alex. So, how does the LGBT community relate to you?
I consider myself to be a non-binary person, gender fluid, pansexual, and I consider myself to be a member of the LGBT community. It's recent. I've been recently knowing those things about myself. So um,
Okay.
within, I guess, the last 5 years or so, I would say I've been wanting to be more of an active participant in the community.
And what's that like for you to be new to this, and what is that experience? Could you kind of like walk me through it?
Sure. Well, there's a whole lot of information about me that my back history. I'm married to a person who is trans, and we had kind of a heterosexual marriage, but not really, for many years. And then my spouse transitioned, and I transitioned along with that. Uh, and I'm now married to a woman. And initially, my introduction to the community was through support groups. I would go to a trans support group for friends and family with her, and then I started meeting a lot of different people in the community and formed friendships. And so that was my introduction to the community. When I was younger, there was no such kind of thing for me because I grew up in the South and I wasn't aware of my sexuality at the time. And when I became aware of my sexuality, I was afraid to talk to people there about it. So it was kind of refreshing to be in a place where I could speak to people about who I am and be authentic.
Awesome. And let me ask you. So the question that this project is about is it's sort of like three parts. Why do you think there is no LGBT center here in Bergen County, in this densely populated, diverse community? Do you think that we need an LGBT center? And when I say LGBT center, that could be anything from a book that's being published, a virtual resource center, to a community center, and anything in between those things. And if you believe we need a center, what would your needs be for that center?
I think the reason why there isn't a center in Bergen County is because even though it's densely populated, I think that most of the time, only recently have we had real support from communities. We've had to fight for support almost all of throughout history, and I just feel like right now we're the most supported that we've ever been as a group. And even still, even though we have the more support now than ever before, there's still a lot of adversity, and there's still a lot of um, friction in different areas, whether it be a theological, religious point of view. Um, it could be that people who have been working in the civic area don't understand or have family members who are in the community, and so they don't understand that there's a need. So I think we haven't had the representation, and I don't think that people who have had the power or the voices um, that are being heard are aware of what we need. But I think that's changing now. And so that would be my opinion about why. I could be wrong about it because when it comes to politics, I don't have that much experience. I also believe that it's definitely needed because we're underrepresented and there are a lot of young people whose lives are just beginning and who have an awareness of who they are that may not have the external circumstances that are accepting of that, and they may be afraid and they may not have anyone to talk to. But if there's an open community, a center where people could be and get the support that they need emotionally and intellectually through the process of understanding and coming out, people will have a better experience of it, because so many people, well, they're just not here anymore because they didn't have that. There are people who are gone because they either didn't have the support that they needed, they weren't aware that it was there, they felt suicidal, there was no one to talk to. There's just thousands of reasons why we need it. And we need it because not just for, but every person who is a teenager has these kind of problems, but they're magnified if you happen not to be straight. It's a very straight-centric world, and it's very easy to feel ostracized and not a part of things. And it's very easy to kind of fall through the cracks. And when you learn that from a very early age, that you're not a person who is accepted, then you tend not to ask for the things that you need as you get older, good health care, and again, there are probably times when a person who is reaching out for the right kind of care may have some discrimination against them. But if we had a community and a support center and outreach and places where we knew would be safe, it would be a lot better.
Thank you for that. Can I ask you, what would be your needs if you would have any, if we had a theoretical center?
Well, what's my theoretical age? I would be
like right now, because I mean, one of the
right
reasons
now.
I asked that is a lot of people, they I think my perspective is that our community, a very varied, diverse community, is so used to not being seen or heard, that when we talk about our needs, it's always about the most obvious, which is young children.
Mhm.
But we still have a very diverse, complex community, and needs that grow across from birth all the way till death, you know? So I would be interested in what is your specific needs, because there's lots of people just like you in this county that are experiencing needs, and I would like to hear what yours are.
Well, just like everyone else, we need good health care, and that means doctors that we can talk to. So I would say um, this this center would have access or information about all kinds of different doctors that you could go to that were LGBT friendly and trusted, considering everything from therapists all the way up to gynecology. Um, if you happen to be a trans person, you're going to have very unique needs, so the doctors would have to be aware of different kind of situations, like if a person is taking hormones or not. So like a wellness aspect to it. Not that the doctors would work there, but a resource for understanding where you can find the doctors.
Yeah.
Counselor. Um, I think a place where you could do some activities and meet people who would be interested in doing some activities, like maybe a softball team. Maybe you get together and find people who like to bowl, or whatever it is that you like to do, where you could make some friendships that continue on into later years, because it gets harder and harder to make friends as we get older.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult if you happen not to be straight and you get introduced to a new place, and you're thinking, well, I don't really have anything in common with anyone, so you don't go out and socialize. So
Yeah.
a place where you could socialize, maybe around people who are similar to you. And then I think as we age too, nobody wants to think about it, but as we age too, there are certain situations, doctors who understand that you're not straight and are not going to refuse a treatment for it. I don't know how that would correlate with the center, except I think just having that connection between, because it feels like a hub to me.
Yeah.
This a community center feels like a hub to me that connects you to a doctors or different things.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and it's funny. It's like because when I talk to what I've noticing is when I talk to people that are in the community and you say center, it's like a light goes on and they know exactly what we're talking about, and they understand and they have a vision. It's sort of like unspoken vision. When you talk to people that are not part of the community, they don't have any reference to it. And to me, it's so weird because I always grew up knowing Gay Men's Health Crisis Center in New York, or you know these places and they're just so tangible in your mind. So yeah, and having a hub, social isolation is very real, and it's a real issue with our community, especially as you get older. And to have a place where their sole purpose is to find those doctors, so when it comes time or when you have a need, you can come to us and say, hey, these are the people that we know that work with you in this situation, you know so yeah, I mean, I think it's very valid. Personally, I'm biased. I think we need some. um, yeah, absolutely. So do you have any questions for me? And we're getting towards the end of this. Do you have any questions?
I guess my question would also be, when it comes to, one of the things I did visualize that I didn't articulate is a physical location, right? But I think that what's happening to the world is that we don't always have the physical locations anymore. There was this sense of, growing up, the community center that I had in the little tiny town that I grew up in, our community center had a library in it and a pool and a big hall, and people would go there, and we would have uh, school dances there. And so, in my mind, I guess I'll always associate community center with that kind of situation where you have a physical location and lots of options, a kitchen for parties and things like that.
Yeah.
But as our society is changing now, I'm having a hard time imagining what that looks like. Is is this something that's shaping your plan, more virtualization and more or less non-physical connection? Because we can't always, I mean, I think the future is bright and the vaccinations are working, but I think this situation with the pandemic has really changed a lot of people. And there may be people who are afraid to come and be around other people in person
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And it may be a while with that may be affecting us for a while. I think, especially if you were very impressionable when all this started.
Yeah.
You know, I I, I think we're going to have lots of therapy to deal with it.
Absolutely.
What do you?
I That's a really good question. And this whole project started in the middle of the pandemic. Well, I don't know when it's going to end. So, um, you know, I came up with the idea like 2 months ago and started this 2 months ago very quickly. So, and not even, there's the whole pandemic and people wanting to isolate still after. But even regardless of that, we have one of the most densest populations counties in the United States, Bergen County. And to have that many people in this county, which is I don't know. I know there's like a 40-minute drive from one end to the other. I don't know exactly how long, but it's past 30 minutes. It could be like 30, 40 minutes drives from one place to the other. So if we're talking about people having access to it, that's not really realistic, right? So for me, if I had a wish list, and because this project is just about raising awareness, right? So we're just showing that there's a need. But if it was someone's to ask me what we need, I think we need a physical brick and mortar building in somewhere like Hackensack where there's lots of trains and buses for people to get to. We would also need to have a very strong virtual web page that could stand alone. So that way anyone in the county can go to that web page and get that information. And this center, it's one of its main drives should be to not reinvent the wheel, to look at people who are doing things in different places, like the Rainbow Cafe, and instead of like reinventing that wheel, supporting them, let them grow and evolve and do the things that they need to do. So they're in Creskill, I think, or I forget where it is, but that's a good drive away. So they can be a mini hub in a sense, but their focus is more on youth, and they have their services and give them some more ability to grow and expand. So that way you have lots of little places throughout Bergen County, but we have the overall virtual one. That's my wish list, if it makes sense. Yeah.
Mhm.
So you have any other questions or stuff? No?
No, not at this time. I guess the only other question I have is what can we do as community members to help?
Well,
What can we do?
I think the talking and doing this is helpful. I think start changing our perceptions. I think our community needs to change it and say, we have a community, and what's lacking, let's start building that community, and believing that it's doable. I think our biggest enemy is this sort of like Stockholm syndrome our community has, where it's like you're so used to not living without that when we sit here and say, hey, we deserve to have a safety net, we deserve these things, that's just an alien idea to people. So I think if we get it around our heads and start saying, you know what, we do, and this is totally doable, and if we band together, I think we can solve this problem and help each other. I think we're in a good place in time in history where this is achievable very easily. If that makes sense. So let me ask you: you're aware that this is being recorded and to be used in a public space in the near future? Do you give consent to this?
Yeah. Are you going to make me look more beautiful, please?
I don't think that's
Can you
possible.
run a filter on my face?
I don't think that's possible. I think I think you're beautiful as is. You
Oh,
can't.
that's very kind. That's
So,
very kind. This is iced tea I was sipping on earlier that was recorded.
oh, okay.
It looks like moonshine, but it's just iced tea, full disclosure.
um, do you feel comfortable with everything that we talked about here?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. If you don't mind, if it's possible to get a copy of it, that'd
Yeah.
be great.
Right after. And that's see, my next question is I will send you a link to the web page. And if you want a copy, I'll give you a copy as well. So you can view it at any moment if you feel like, hey, I don't want to take it down or do this or do that. You have my the ability to contact me and I'll do so within a timely manner. So, and I just wanted to say that you and your significant other were some of the first people I befriended in the community of the non-binary transgender community. And thank you for opening my eyes and educating me because I didn't know anyone. To say I knew people in the past, but I didn't know people in a couple and living their lives. I knew people that I dated and then now they transitioned, so that was my experience to the community. But I really value our friendship and thank you guys so much, for showing me your world and being allowing me to be a part of it. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Well, thank you for being our friend, and we really appreciate you too.
Yeah, and we have to
And
go.
thank you for, okay.
Yep. And so I'm gonna hang up and stop recording 1 second.